I'm going to continue with the class. Okay. Okay, I'm recording. Recording the previous class. Okay, so okay. We're going to finish this. Okay, so here we already talked about this. Okay, now what are we going to take into account related to the feedback, to the corrective feedback? So number one, we need to take into account that we may be working on something that is going to be motivation killer. What is that? So, for example, my class can be very good, like motivating or something like that. I'm just creating a hypothesis, right? Don't take it too serious. But once I'm going to create the feedback, all the motivation is going to be over, right? So right here, this is going to be like having a relationship, okay? So what is going to be the key aspect for you to have a relationship? Number one, you need to motivate everybody, right? Number two, you need to show your interest. Number three, you need to know which words you're going to use for you to avoid this kind of lack of motivation. Avoid, yeah. So in this case, right? So for example, you need to be in touch with your students inside the classroom, maybe outside the classroom, right? With academic purposes, please, right? It's going to be just like that. Now, not wanting to stop flow of conversation. Once the conversation has started, and if the student has a doubt, solve the doubt. Let the conversation flow, right? Let the student talk. Yes, there are some students that personally talking, they are not that kind of talkative person. So for example, in my case, I talk a lot, but let's say in some other cases, there are students that they do not talk that much, right? So what strategies to implement for the student to talk to you, right? That's the issue. Now, learners could lose face, energy, right? Motivation, everything. So for example, we're going to treat student in a very strong way. Maybe he or she is going to quit. So we need to be careful about that. So what to do? Okay, there's a citation here. So close the gap between students' preferences for receiving corrective feedback and teachers reluctant to offer it. This is like selling a product, okay? This is like televentas could be. This is like, for example, going to a mass. This is like, for example, going to a restaurant. What is your product? Your product as future teachers is going to be number one, the pedagogic mediations you're going to show. Number two, the didactic resources and the didactic sequences that you're going to show to students. Number three, the material. Number four, your personality, right? So you need to be a charming guy and or a charming girl, right? In Spanish, we say un encantador de serpientes, right? So why? Because you need to keep the motivation at this level very high, right? And once you have set the bar, you need to continue with that. Okay, here, different types of feedback for different students on the same error. So here we see some personalities, right? The one that is happy, the one that is going to be kind of moody,
Grumpy.
grumpy, the one that is going to be something like, well, yeah, say hey, hello. The one that is always lazy. I don't know, the mood is not going to be good,
Breast.
and the one that is going to be shy, right? The one that doesn't like to show any kind of feelings, right? So we need to take into account that what's going to be the way in which I'm going to refer to every person. So my word of advice right here is to, oh, we have a little baby. What? My word of advice right here is to be neutral, right? Can I do it in this way? Here, text. Always be neutral, right? Why? Because if you're neutral in this case, yeah, if you're neutral in this way, nobody's going to feel offended. And that's the thing that we need to do. We need to show students that learning from our mistakes is not insulting, right? That there is no offense on receiving feedback, right? That in the contrary, you need to have the mood for receiving as a student and the mood for giving as a teacher, right? So in this case, this is going to be the way in which we're going to show um, our our feedback. Got it?
Got
No. Okay. Now we have right here interactionist versus a skill acquisition theory. We're going to see some theoretical issues right here about the recasters that remember that is going to be explicit and the prompts that are going to be explicit. Right? What happened here? Okay. So let's see some issues right here. So the learner's uptake. So they need to respond to recasters, right? So you need to provide the opportunity for them to respond to your recasters, right? So for example, okay, so we have a yellow banana, and no, we have a delicious banana. We have a tasty watermelon. We have a very um, spicy guacamole. I don't know anything. We have at the what? A very sugary chocolate. We have a kind of bitter coffee, right? And then you're going to ask the student, and now you have, oh, I have a delicious orange. That's it, right? You're going to tell the student, you're going to give the students the ideas on what to do, what to follow, what to practice. Be aware that their responses may be red herrings, right? So may related to the correct way of saying something. Now we have new versus partially acquired knowledge. As it is stated here, it remains unclear, however, how a recast can be provided on a form about which the learner has zero knowledge. If the student produced the form, albeit erroneously, then some knowledge of the form exists. So remember that the error right here and what we saw about errors and mistakes in the previous weeks is going to be related to this. If you're making an error, it's because at least you're trying it, right? But if you continue in the error, there's going to be our labor for the students to correct that, to provide the strategies for students to understand what they're doing wrong, for them not to feel offended, but for them to improve in their language learning developmental process. Okay, now, are we going to do the corrective feedback with
Sí,
or without
¿qué
instructions?
necesita que yo haga? Porque, o sea, yo puedo salir los sábados y podía salir ayer, sino que yo salí como que el
Mute,
martes
mute it,
Lina,
mute it, please.
Lina.
Guys.
I lost my concentration. Nah, just kidding. Okay, very good. Now, so how to work with the what with the corrective feedback, with or without instructions? Wow, it's going to be with instructions. It's going to be intensive, right? But without instructions, it's going to be extensive. What is that? Example, remember when you were learning grammar in the previous semesters and you were trying to
Mm-hmm.
learn, for example, future perfect continuous, right? And maybe you didn't know how to use that because even in Spanish, we don't use that, right? But you had to work on it over and over again and over again. It's going to be intensive because you have to read a lot of information about how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, what to do it, to do with it, right? But without instruction, it's going to be extensive because I need you to understand in a very deductive way. What I'm saying right here, so far so good, is going to be this. That here with instruction, meaning intensive, it's going to be maybe inductive, right? But without instruction, it's going to be deductive. Meaning that with inductive, we need to induce the student to the grammatical form, the macro, the pragmatical issue, the semantic content, the syntactic order, everything, right? But the deductive, you're going to show students, I don't know, lots of examples, how to use that, but in a pragmatic way, right? With no explanation directed. Okay, very good. So this is the way in which we're going to use this feedback, okay? Now, the linguistic targets right here. So we may have the grammatical targets, lexical targets, phonological targets, and pragmatic targets, right? Now, question. Sorry, not to worry. Okay, cool. Now, the grammatical targets. The grammatical targets. So it is advised and suggested. Um, it is suggested to make these corrections in a deductive way, right? Not in an inductive way. How? Why? Well, we need to look for some ideas to work with this, right? Remember that we don't use grammar every single day in a very, what is this? Conscious way, right? So because it's going to be a conjunction, we, noun, are, verb to be conjugated in present simple, not, going to be a preposition indicating negation, going to, expression for future, for near future, well, whatever. So that is going to be grammatical target. So showing the issue related to grammar and how it's going to be corrected, right? Sorry. Open this. Language, please. The lexical target, well, effective when it's going to be explicit, right? So, for example, what if I say example? What's the meaning in Spanish for actually,
Realmente.
realmente? But what if I'm going to say, yeah, actualmente? Oh, yeah, that's the mistake, actually. But if I want to say actualmente in English, how do you say that? And I don't want you to use
Currently.
nowadays. Currently,
Nowadays.
very good. Currently,
Currently.
very good.
Not today.
Very good. That's it. Okay. So it's going to be like that. Recently. Sounds good. Yeah. So it's going to be like that. You need to do that. Okay. Phonological targets. Effective when explicit. Yes, of course. Example. I'm going to use the word. Ah, Eat and eat. So for example, I'm going to eat a banana and I'm going to eat a banana. So what is going to be the difference in sounds between eat and, damn it, sorry, and it, right? Related to peach and beach. Because between sheep and sheep. And I'm going to use more expressions, right? I'm going to show you a video via Edmodo from this series that is called Mind Your Language, the first episode from the first season, for you to try, yeah, burr and burr. Very good. So how to use that inside the context, right? So that's it. Sorry, bear and beer, right? For example, the bear and to bear in mind, if I'm not wrong, right? So how to use that? So I'm going to show you, as I was telling you, an episode from a series that is called Mind the Language, first season, first episode, for you to see those problems related to phonological targets. Now, the pragmatic targets, you need to do it explicitly, very explicit, because um, now you're going to see that episode, and then you're going to see, for example, what is the difference between to roll and if I'm not wrong, it's like this. If I'm not wrong, right? We're almost done, not too worry. So that's the issue that we have to take into account. Once again, you need to take into account the age, right? It's not the same for you to give feedback to a elementary school student or a high school student or a college student. Not the same, right? You need to take into account that. This means we need to see the episode and feedback oral errors. No. We're going to see that, the episode, for you to see what I'm talking about, right? About the way in which teacher is going to use this feedback in an explicit way, right? Now, I didn't, I wasn't myself clear enough. Not to worry, Camila. I was my mistake, my mistake. What? More what? For a better understanding. Yes, for a better understanding. For you to see that. Yes, it was, that episode was created in 1972, but it works today, right? Because it is language in the end. Okay. Okay. Now, this can occur between a native speaker and a non-native speaker or two non-native speakers, right? These kind of corrections. Whereas native speakers tend to reformulate errors rather than give prompts. The foreign language learners, they provide each other with more prompts, leading to more development, right? Then learners benefit from both receiving and providing feedback. However, learners may not accept that from a peer, right? So, for example, there are going to be some little issues in which, let's say, well, he is one of the best students from the classroom, and I don't think he's going to give me a feedback and I'm not going to receive it because he's not the professor, right? It happens. Finally, peer, what is this? The peer corrective feedback may also be may also lack effectiveness because learners often focus more on errors of meaning that form, right? So this is going to be some like things to be taken into account. And finally, one size does not fit for all. And that's going to be the end of this class. Remember, not everybody is going to learn the same. Not everybody is going to what? To have the same necessities or the same learning process, right?
Mhm.
And that's all. So, pretty much have these documents related to corrective feedback, so you can read them, right? And what I want you to no, what I'm going to do is going to be a video related to applied linguistics interaction patterns, right? So we need to talk about some little issues about what is going to be interaction inside the classroom interaction, right? So I have this information that I'm going to record in a video. I'm going to send it that. Uh, and that's it. I'm going to stop sharing the information and here, use of questions and feedback to generate discussions. And I'm going to stop the recording here because I'm going to upload upload it later. But sorry, I need to, that's it. Okay, and I'm going to stop recording the session.